Today, we see many problems in the world. For example, there are conflicts in the Middle East, like the one between Israel and Palestine. Also, countries like China and India have issues over their borders. When we see these fights, it might seem like countries hate each other. But countries do not feel hate like people do. A country cannot wake up with bad feelings or get angry. What looks like hate between nations is different. This feeling is often made by leaders. They use old stories and history to make people believe there is a common enemy. Leaders use power and past events to create a we versus them idea. This makes people feel anger or fear towards other nations. This is a manufactured reality or made-up reality. It is created, it is not a natural feeling. Today, this made-up hate is more risky. New problems make things worse. Climate change means countries fight over water and land. This can make old problems much bigger. Also, new technology like artificial intelligence or AI can spread false stories very fast. Leaders can use AI to make people believe wrong things. This makes the manufactured hate even stronger and more dangerous. Understanding this is important. If we know that hate between countries is often created, we can look at conflicts differently. We can see how history, power, and new technologies are used to push nations apart. This book will look more closely at why this happens and what it means for our world. 2. Old fights, new problems. Past events still shape our world today. They are like old maps that still guide how countries act. Sometimes old decisions make new problems that feel very new. History is not just in books, it is a living force that affects our present. A good example is the Sykes-Picot Agreement. This was a secret deal made in 1916, during the First World War. Two countries, Britain and France, made this agreement. They decided how to divide large parts of the Middle East. This land was then part of the Ottoman Empire. The two diplomats, Sir Mark Sykes from Britain and François-Georges Picot from France, drew lines on a map in their offices. They did not visit the region. These lines created borders that were not natural. They did not follow where different groups of people lived. Instead, the agreement put many different ethnic and religious groups into new countries. Sometimes it split one group into different countries. The people who lived in these areas were not asked. Their wishes were completely ignored. Britain and France simply wanted to gain power and control over the region. The agreement had promised Arabs independence if they fought against the Ottoman Empire. But this promise was broken. Instead, Britain and France divided the region into their own areas of influence. For example, they created Iraq by joining Sunni, Shia, and Kurdish populations. These groups often had different ideas and goals. Syria and Lebanon became French mandates. Britain took control of Palestine, which set the stage for major conflicts later on. More than 100 years later, these old borders still cause much trouble. They are like ghosts from the past that haunt the Middle East. The conflicts we see today in places like Iraq, Syria, and Palestine are directly connected to that old agreement. In Iraq, different religious and ethnic groups have fought each other for many years. Syria has experienced a long and terrible civil war, partly because different groups could not agree on who should lead. In Palestine, people still fight over land, remembering the decisions made long ago that created their borders. These countries were not formed naturally by the people living there. They were invented by powerful countries, with borders drawn to help their own interests, not the local people. This artificial nature made many of these new states weak states. They had international names, but not strong unity inside. Today, these colonial-era problems mix with new global competitions. When one country acts in the Middle East, it is often tied to these historical wrongs. This makes old fights new problems every day, making peace very hard to find. 3. Stories from the past. Every country has special stories. We call these national myths. These stories help people in a country feel like one group. They are not always fully true, but they choose parts of history to remember. These myths create heroes and villains, making people feel connected and understand who they are. One example is the story of Serbia and the Battle of Kosovo. This fight happened in the year 1389. Serbian forces lost to the Ottoman Empire. But over many hundreds of years, this defeat became a story of bravery. Serbs believed they chose a spiritual victory over an earthly one. This myth made Serbs see themselves as victims and protectors of Christian Europe. In the 1980s and 90s, a leader named Slobodan Milosevic used this story. He used it to support war in Bosnia and Kosovo. Even today, Serbian politicians talk about Kosovo as a holy place. Another example comes from Russia. President Vladimir Putin wrote in 2021 that Russians and Ukrainians are one people. He said that other countries had tried to divide them. This idea helped Russia explain its invasion of Ukraine. Putin used this historical story to say that Russia was correcting an old wrong. He said Russia was freeing Ukraine. This turned a war into a mission to restore history. These national stories are strong because many people truly believe them. Children learn them in school, and families share them. They become part of who people are. Today, social media makes these stories even more powerful. Algorithms on social media show people content that makes them feel strong emotions. This means emotional stories from the past spread very quickly. Leaders also use social media to share these myths with people in other countries. This makes it harder for people to find peace, because giving up the story feels like giving up part of who they are. 4. The big competition. Big countries always want more power. They have competed for a very long time. This competition changes, but the goal is always to be stronger than others. In the 1800s, there was a great game. Britain and Russia were the main players. They both wanted power in Central Asia. Britain wanted to protect India. Russia wanted to grow its own power. They used spies, talked to leaders, and made friends. They even built railways. This was a slow game for land. Today, there is a new great game. The United States and China are the main players. This game is not about land. It is about technology, especially computer chips. These tiny chips are vital for phones, computers, and military tools. The United States tries to stop China from getting the best machines to make these chips. This is because advanced chips are key for new technologies, like artificial intelligence. The U.S. government sets rules for what companies can sell to China. China, in return, works hard to make its own chips. It also looks for other ways to get the technology it needs. China builds factories in other countries and creates its own tech networks. This helps China depend less on the U.S. and its friends. Both countries also build alliances. The U.S. works with countries in Europe and Asia to control technology. China offers its tech and help to other nations. This is like the old great game, where countries tried to surround rivals with allies. Today's game is faster and bigger. The old game in Central Asia mostly stayed there. Now, if chip-making stops in one country, it can hurt businesses all over the world. Countries are deeply linked by trade. So, while they compete, they also need each other. This makes the new great game very risky. Countries want safety, but too much fighting can also hurt their wealth. 5. A fight for food and water. Many countries often fight over things they need to live. These things include land for farming, food, and especially water. Today, climate change makes these fights much worse. It brings less rain to some places and too much rain to others, changing how much water is available around the world. This makes old problems bigger and creates new ones. One big example is the Nile River. This long river flows through several countries in Africa. Egypt, a country mostly desert, depends on the Nile River for almost all its water. Without it, life there would be very difficult. But upstream, Ethiopia is building a very large dam called the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Ethiopia wants this dam to produce electricity for its people and help its economy grow. Egypt is very worried that the dam will hold back too much water, leaving less for its own people. This disagreement is not just about water. It is about survival for Egypt and development for Ethiopia. In Asia, China and India also have serious water issues. China builds dams on rivers like the Brahmaputra, which then flow into India and Bangladesh. People in India worry that China's dams will reduce the amount of water they receive. This adds to the tension between these two large countries, especially along their shared border. Now, there is a new kind of competition for resources. Countries are fighting for special minerals needed for new green technologies. These include metals like lithium and cobalt, used to make batteries for electric cars and to store renewable energy. Rare earth minerals are also important for many modern technologies. These minerals are not found everywhere, so countries want to control the places that have them. This new race for vital materials shapes new alliances and creates more reasons for countries to compete. These fights over basic resources are becoming more urgent. As the world changes, access to food, water, and essential minerals will continue to cause tension between nations. 6. Our side, their side. Chapter 6 talks about how wars are not just about fighting with weapons. They are also about ideas. Before people fight, they often need to believe that the other side is bad. Leaders tell stories that make one group seem like us and the other group seem like them. This makes it easier to start and continue a conflict. A good example is the Cold War. For many years, the United States and the Soviet Union were enemies. The United States said its way, capitalism, was good because it meant freedom. The Soviet Union said its way, communism, was good because it meant equality. Each side told its people that their system was the best for people, and that the other system was very bad. This idea made it hard for them to find peace. Every small problem in the world was seen through this big fight between two ideas. Today, we hear a similar story. Many leaders talk about a fight between democracy and autocracy. Democracy means people choose their leaders. Autocracy means one leader or a small group has all the power. For example, President Biden has spoken about this, saying it is like the fight against bad groups in the past. This way of talking helps countries become friends if they share the same idea. However, this simple story can make things difficult. When leaders say it is democracy versus autocracy, it can stop them from trying to talk to or understand countries that are called autocratic. It means they might not see other reasons for a conflict, like history or resources. For instance, there is a border problem between China and India. Both countries have their own reasons. But sometimes people in the West see India as a democratic friend and China as an autocratic enemy. This way of thinking makes it harder to help them solve their border problem. The same is true for the war in Ukraine. Many people see it as a fight for democratic values. This is part of the truth. But it also means other parts of the story, like past events or security fears, are not talked about much. When conflicts become only about ideas, it is hard to find a way to stop the fighting. This simple us versus them story can make peace much harder to achieve. 7. The new propaganda. Governments have always used propaganda to gain support for their actions, especially during times of conflict. The goal is to make people believe their country is right and the other side is wrong. In the past, propaganda spread through newspapers, radio, and television. These messages were often simple, like us versus them, and were sent to many people at once. Today, propaganda has become much more advanced due to new technologies. Artificial intelligence, or AI, and social media platforms are key tools in this modern information war. Unlike old propaganda, which sent the same message to everyone, new digital propaganda can be very personal. AI systems can now create fake news stories that look real. They can write articles, make images, and even produce videos that appear authentic. These fake videos are called deepfakes. They can show political leaders or other important people saying or doing things they never did. It is becoming very difficult for regular people to tell the difference between real and fake content. Social media is the perfect place to spread this new kind of propaganda. AI learns about each user's interests, beliefs, and even their fears. It then creates specific messages or finds existing fake content that will likely get a strong emotional reaction from that individual. This means that two different people might see completely different versions of events online, both tailored to their specific views. The AI algorithms work to make sure these powerful emotional messages spread very quickly to many people around the world. This personalized approach makes propaganda more effective than ever. It creates what some call synthetic authenticity, content that feels real and trustworthy even if it is completely false. When people are constantly exposed to information that confirms their existing beliefs, they become less likely to question it or consider other viewpoints. The danger of this new propaganda is immense. It can deeply divide societies, making people distrust each other and their leaders. It makes it easier for governments to get public support for military actions. It also makes peace talks harder because people on different sides are living in different information realities. Understanding what is true and what is false in this new era of digital propaganda is a major challenge for everyone, making conflicts harder to resolve. 8. Can we stop the hate? It can seem like countries are always set to fight. We see many conflicts in history. But do countries have to hate each other forever? Can this hate really stop? Consider the story of France and Germany. For hundreds of years, these two nations were bitter enemies. They fought many terrible wars, including the Franco-Prussian War and two world wars in the 20th century. Many people believed they were destined to always be at war. But after the Second World War, something amazing happened. Leaders from both countries made a clear choice. They decided to work closely together. They built new groups like the European Coal and Steel Community, which started in 1951. This group joined their important industries, like coal and steel. These materials are key for making things, even weapons. By linking these industries, it became very hard for either country to secretly prepare for war against the other. They found that working together brought more benefits than fighting. This was not simple. It required new ideas, strong efforts, and many patient discussions over years. But it showed that peace was possible. This lesson is important for our world today. Many global challenges, like climate change, affect all countries. New technologies, such as artificial intelligence, bring shared opportunities and risks. Countries are also deeply connected through trade. A big war between major powers would cause huge damage to everyone. This means that staying as enemies is very costly. The hate we see between countries is not a natural feeling like a person's hate. Instead, it is something made by people. It comes from old stories, power struggles, and leaders who use history to divide people. These stories can be changed. The rules that guide how countries act can be redesigned. People and their leaders have a choice. They can choose to continue old fights, or they can choose to build a future based on cooperation. The journey of France and Germany teaches us that ending hate is a conscious decision. It needs leaders who are brave enough to let go of old hurts and try new ways. It means we must understand that conflict is not always a fixed path. We can write new endings for our nation's stories. We have the power to break the cycle of hate and choose a different path. What do you think? With all the challenges and connections today, can countries truly choose to stop the hate and build a more peaceful world?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.